This is the original Firefighter Podcast, where we talk about anything you would talk about at the firehouse kitchen table. And sometimes we even talk about fighting fires. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell. Let's get into the show. And welcome back to the original Firefighter Podcast. And in the studio today is the OG group. How we feeling, guys?
Feeling good.
Yeah. It's a great Friday.
I'm tired.
Not Good Friday. It's a great Friday.
I see what you did there. Got your lunchtime bourbons?
Yeah. How was everyone's Easter holiday?
It's good.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was a good weekend.
Good.
Time with family, time at church.
Executed 2 egg hunts.
2 egg hunts.
2 egg hunts.
Nice. I went
One
egg
indoor,
hunts.
one outdoor. The outdoor was mighty cold.
Right.
Our neighborhood does a egg hunt every year, but this year it coincided with FDIC. So we didn't go to the egg hunt. We went to FDIC instead.
Which was a scavenger. Well, it
was
a hunt, a scavenger hunt of itself, not an
How
egg
many
hunt,
mustaches can you find?
Yeah, we found some good ones. There were some interesting ones. Great
It
ones.
inspired me to, like, if I were a firefighter, I would have quite a stash.
Yeah.
You can do it now. You don't have to wait.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Then I feel like I'm a poser.
The guy.
Yeah, I get that.
The
I would
guy
feel that
from
way,
Kodiak Island.
Yeah, that was legit.
Yeah, that's
Great
legit.
stash.
Legit. I'm glad we kind of touched on Easter because in this episode titled Fires, Faith, and Funding, A Nation in Flux. Dun, 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 dun. Let's get a few things out of the way quickly. So just want to be clear that Gail King and Katy Perry and the rest of the Space Cadet Pack, you are not astronauts.
Not astronauts.
You're not astronauts, and I'm going to be very specific as to why. So these
They went to space.
No, let's just...
They're closer than I am.
You know, this makes me think that, you know, when I was like a kid, my mom, she put out a trash fire with a mop head, like a mop, and then proceeded to try to tell people she was a firefighter. I'm like, bullshit. No, you are not. So I hate to break it to
Is that like
the pretentious Gail King who challenged everyone. Have you been to space? Have you been to space? No, I don't have $28 million to pay for a Disneyland ride. I don't have $28 million to pay for a Disneyland ride that touches the edge of space, and then we run around claiming that we're astronauts. Here's how I also know is that let's be respectful to the fact that Valentina Tereshkov,
Nice name.
a Soviet cosmonaut, became the first woman astronaut to travel in space in 1963. As the first woman to orbit the planet, she completed a 3-day solo mission aboard the Vostok 6 spacecraft. I'm sure that my Russian accent is terrible and I'm butchering these. But Valentina Tereshkov, she was the first woman.
Real astronaut.
And
actually went to space.
And then after that, a cumulative of 104 female astronauts have gone to space. They've completed actual space flights. Sally Kristen Ride, May 26, 1951 to July 23rd, 2012. She was an American astronaut and physicist. She was born in L.A. She joined NASA in 1978. In 1983, became the first American woman and the third woman to fly into space after cosmonauts Valentina and another, I'm not even going to try, Savlenta Savskaya in 1982. She was the youngest American astronaut to have flown in space, having done so at the age of 32. So anyways, like I said, today there have been 104 female astronauts. They've completed space flights. Most notably would be Sunita Williams. So she spent 9 months in space, not expected.
Right.
So she was up in space. They went up for, they had an 11-minute ride. They were in
3-hour tour.
They were in like floated space for
This
about
is
4
like
minutes.
Gilligan's Island in space.
Sunita Williams spent 9 months in space, so we're going to let her keep her astronaut title.
How far up do they go? Like they're just right on the edge, right?
Yeah.
It's like
they
but
apparently.
I mean, you can clearly see. I mean, you're in space. You're seeing the Earth. They're up there, but it's not like. I love the comparisons of the Blue Origin coming back from space versus the X rocket coming back from space. and the X rocket's just charred to pieces.
Right.
And it's like that. Well, that's really going up.
That's
doing
what
some
happened.
stuff.
Yeah.
So you're saying
most-
Katy Perry is a firework, but not.
Yeah, she's
Not
a
an
firework.
astronaut.
So
I heard she regrets the publicity around it.
I'm sure.
The reason we jump up, okay, this has happened now in the last few weeks that this happened, and it come on, this is a circus show,
Yeah.
and
It's PR at its finest.
hey, congratulations, Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin,
Blue Origin.
Blue Oyster.
Blue
Cool.
Origin, Blue
Ooh.
Penis. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It makes you think of what is Austin Powers.
Yeah.
They're like, look at that. It's a what-eye Willie.
Or the ambiguously gay duo
Oh,
from
yeah,
SNL.
for sure, right?
Their rocket ship.
Yeah. Yeah. So I assume that this was their inspiration for the design of
It
the
must have
rocket
been.
ship.
Yeah.
I do want to make a notable mention that so Peggy Whitson holds the most cumulative days in space at 665 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cumulative. Christina Koch spent 328 straight days in space. And the previous woman before that was Peggy Whitson. She had a streak of 289 days in a row.
It's almost as many vacation days as you took in 2024.
I did take a lot.
They come back. I forgot what the max amount of space your max amount of time you should be in space before your body really takes a hit. And it was like 3 months. It wasn't
Not 4 minutes.
No, I think they're okay.
They're okay.
So my question is, I mean, I'm going to travel down this path for a second.
Yeah.
If we're going to Mars, how are they going to be going that far without everybody arriving with walkers? Just we're here.
Right.
They need like motorized like wheelchairs to because there's gravity on Mars. It's not as much, but
we did in a previous episode. We did cover a little bit of the Butch and Sonny expedition where it took.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be 8 days, and ended up being 9 months. I personally think that the media as a whole, we didn't hype up the return enough. I think that
I
goes to
Agreed.
It flies in the face of Elon Musk, and we don't want to give him too much praise because right now everybody's all
they said
bent
it
out
was
of shape.
NASA.
Yeah,
They gave credit to NASA.
Yeah, right. Sure.
Which
okay.
fine, they were involved, but it was
Yeah.
it was the
Well, they were involved.
Well, they
in,
sent them.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it was who sent them up?
Boeing, right?
Boeing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it was their.
Yeah, and they returned.
It was
They
their-
returned their craft. There was a flaw, or they thought that they were leaking some. I think
power steering fluid.
they were leaking a power steering fluid.
Shows how much I know about space travel.
When they were up there, Sonny and Butch, they had to do at least 2 hours worth of physical activity per day to keep their bone density and muscle mass in good working shape, so that when they got back to Earth, that they would be able to have a decent recovery. They look great, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen them both, and but honestly, this jump off on our segment here right now is to celebrate actual female astronauts, and that's who we should be lifting up.
Yeah.
And I get pretty pissed off when I see Gail King looking straight at the camera going, "Have you been to space? Have you been to space?" Like, are you really throwing down in this? People are trying to buy eggs.
Yeah.
they're trying to figure out how they can handle their, monthly home income
Expenses,
to expenses ratio. And Gail King is challenging those who have or have not been to quote unquote space. So
I have
whatever.
enough money to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have enough money to maybe ride Space Mountain once. Yeah.
I'd say you're
Alone.
I'd
Like
say you're an
I
astronaut.
couldn't
then.
also bring my kids with me. That'd be too expensive.
Right. That actually has been referred to a lot. Space Mountain, and the other one has been the Tower of Terror.
Oh, yeah.
People have been like, well, I went up in the Tower of Terror once. I
Went
guess
to the top of the Space Needle.
I scaled the Sears Tower in an elevator,
Yeah.
so I've accomplished that.
Yeah. Well, I did. So I just actually went to Chicago.
Yeah,
and
you just sent us some pictures.
yeah, and I did
Kissing the ground after.
Yeah,
It's good.
I was up in the John Hancock building. I did the tilt ride. I guess
the
it's not a
Herbie Hancock
ride.
building?
Yeah, the Herbie Hancock. It's Herbie Hancock. So you do this, and it really was cool. I mean, you get in this. Well, you step into these windows, and then the window system tilts outward, and it puts you at a degree where you're looking down at Michigan Avenue or whatever street it is, and you're like, holy cow. I mean, you do feel the blood leave your legs, And so I only imagined, like, what did they feel, those 6 space cadets, like, that went up there.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think of them at all. But I did get done, and I knelt down and I kissed the floor. I was like, oh, thank God. I'm still alive.
Have you gone skydiving?
Yeah, I've actually skydived several times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've gone twice
Yeah.
in my younger years. I question. I know my kids will probably get to an age where they want to go, and my dad went with me, and I'm like, do I want to go again? Because back then I just did it. It was like I loved the thrill and felt it was safe, and it's still plenty safe to do.
Sure.
But it's like, oh man, do I want to do that again? I know my son's one day going to be like, let's go skydiving.
Right.
Okay.
I know. What you're doing is you're recounting the fact that you went, you survived it, you don't want to push it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then how do you say no to your son?
I know.
You beat the odds.
I'll do it. But I don't feel like doing it again. But in the moment, I'll do it, and it'll probably be great.
I've never done it.
Do you want to go? When your sons will probably want to go around this time my son
If
wants to
they
go.
wanted to go and they wanted me to go with them, I would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would want to go again because I got a video, and it was back during the VHS days, and I was in college, and somewhere in the moves, I lost that VHS tape, so I have no video of that. So it'd be kind of cool to get that video again.
I feel like you'd have to push me out of the plane though. Like I feel like I would be like, kung fu grip.
Sure.
Locked
You
on
wanna
that
go-
side.
you wanna
I'd
go
want
to
to
the-
do it, but it's like I don't know if my body would let me do it.
I went to World Skydive Center in Florida, and the guy that went with me was like a Navy SEAL that went thousands of times. So you're like, you want to check that.
Yeah.
You want to make sure it's not the guy
Yeah.
who's like, I just got certified.
Bob's base jumping.
Right. But so you went tandem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You can't go. You can't go on your own. I think you have to go at least 3 times tandem, and then you got to go through
Yes.
some training.
That's right. You do.
And-
But now, so you went tandem. When you got done, did you run around telling everyone that you were a skydiver?
No.
Exactly. Because you know your place. Because you know your place.
I mean, it's one thing to go, hey, I've been to space. Yes, you have been to space. It's another thing to say you're an astronaut.
Yeah.
Is that,
And that's- and that's
for sure.
actually-
Is that
I think
what
that's
they were
good.
going around
a
saying?
good way to clarify
Yeah.
it.
Oh, they had people, the reporters that, when they came back and they, interviewed Katy Perry and Gail King, they were like, you're now an astronaut. And they're like, yes, thank you. But bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone's calling out. I mean, Wendy's is calling it out. The restaurant Wendy's is like, hey, don't overstep your bound here.
They're
This
fire on social media. Wendy's is. They're
are.
on their game. They're good.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You're taking it too far, Gail. You took it too far. You know,
They got a room full of snarky people handling their social media accounts. For
I
sure.
love that.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, if the whole thing was meant to be that Blue Horizon,
Blue Origin.
oh, sorry, Blue Origin.
Just
Okay.
gonna- all the wrong names.
Yeah, all the wrong names. Sorry, thank you. We correct things sometimes on this show. Sometimes. Okay, so but Blue Origin, if the whole point is to show that we can take people
Yeah, civilians.
and send them up with a little bit of,
Give them the experience.
training of
Yeah.
when we all fly, they still show us how to buckle the seatbelt.
Right.
That's about what they got trained to do. They're like, here's how you put the seatbelt on, and you're going to lay
It had
it.
to be
and then-
more than that. I mean, they had to be fit for those awesome blue jumpsuits.
They did go all out on that,
Yeah, they
didn't
did.
they? And their hair was perfect. Everything was very well PR driven there.
Yeah.
Good job on that. If the whole point is to show that we can take spacecrafts
Celebrities
and
to-
put civilians in there and send you up and have this out of Earth experience. Okay.
That was a well-crafted statement.
yeah. I'm fired up on this.
to breach the threshold of technical
Yes.
space.
I am honestly fired up, and I think a lot of people are. This is our attempt to actually highlight and elevate achievement, but also look at the past females that are actually out there pushing the envelope.
Yeah, certified
Yeah.
astronauts are at the top of their game, both in their
Exactly.
scientific or engineering
Yep.
field or whatever their area of study is, along with the physical demands and training that have to be put
Yes.
into place to be able to actually function in space, as well as everything else they need to know from a technical standpoint to actually control that craft,
Right.
not just ride in the passenger seat.
If you want to know how difficult it is, watch the movie Space Camp. I mean, gives you a taste.
I thought you were
of
going to say Spaceballs.
How challenging it is to go to space, and also Walking Phoenix's first movie, I think.
Joaquin Phoenix?
Yeah, he was just a little kid in that.
So this was more like Flight of the Navigator then for them, right?
Right.
Just get in and we'll drive you around.
Quite frankly, I can't get anything other than Austin Powers out of my own. I'm sorry. Whenever I see this thing taking off,
It's a giant Woody.
Woody.
Yeah. Pecker. It's genius. It's genius. But again, I'll swing back over to the Blue Origin, which is if it was meant to. I think the whole thing could have just been a really cool PR thing for them, and
It's a great
and just let it be
technical and
that.
engineering achievement to
But
be able
they-
to bring civilians into that.
They went
area.
way too far with it.
Yeah.
They went way too far. And what they really did is I think they undercut the amazing females that have been in those roles that we just already covered.
Right.
The real astronauts kicking ass and, basically both genders out there kicking ass in
Right.
space. Stop making
I
it,
better
stop
never
making it be
see-
this other thing that it's
Better
just
never
not.
see any of them driving a Prius preaching to us about climate change.
After taking a spaceship and the amount of fuel they burn.
Yeah, you've burned like 10 lifetimes of fuel.
Yeah, for sure.
Automobile. Bleh.
How are we going to get to Mars and survive there?
I don't.
We had that conversation offline recently, and some
Yeah.
of us don't think it's going to happen.
Well, he's coming out with the Tesla robots. So you have the robots with the AI, and that's my prediction. Is
So we're all going to upload our consciousness to a
I
AI
think
robot
they're
and
gonna
then send it to Mars.
They're going to go there. They're going to take the flight. These robots with AI, and they're going to have the Tesla driving system on board, so they don't even have to fly it. And they arrive and they set up camp, get everything established and nice and cozy, and then maybe eventually people go there. But I don't think it's going to be people going there immediately.
Yeah, that's an interesting proposition.
I think we're right around the corner with that.
Because it's got to be the
Robots.
environment that's changed, right?
You put
we
a
can't
robot
just
on there?
all walk around in suits and be adapted to
You put a Tesla robot on
Mars
there,
is
they
gravity.
don't even need a
Right.
suit. They're just walking around. They're
Right.
fine. They can do whatever. I think
The robots.
the robots.
I like that. It's a good idea.
I think that's how it's going to go. That's my prediction. I could be wrong. I'm probably not.
So let's go down this road a little bit. Well, let's go a little further down since we're in the space exploration context. You know, Elon Musk, the other day I saw that he was wearing a shirt that said "Occupy Mars."
Yeah,
Okay, and
it's good.
and it is, and I think we actually have touched on this in another episode where we talked about the fundamental idea of leaving Earth as a civilization, and then going to another planet that could sustain the life that we know today as being humanoids, not robots. So the idea that we're going to leave Earth and we're going to go to another planet and we're going to populate that planet in some way, shape, or form. And I think that it takes like 10,000 humans to begin to establish a civilization of sorts, one that actually could sustain sickness, death, dying, reproduction, rebirth, things of that nature. So you actually need a pretty good size. It might be bigger than that. I don't know. Somebody go and Google it, but I think it's at least 10,000. And so that's the question is we were talking about like maybe when we get to this place where we're going to leave Earth, head to Mars, and do what? Fill in the blank. And how many people are we taking along with us? 20, 50, 200 to actually land on Mars, to set up some type of a ecosystem that can sustain the severity of Mars for a long duration of time. Basically send back a homing beacon that says, hey, we made it, we're alive, we've got the eco hub established, and we're walking around and we're doing the things and we're growing potatoes like the Martian, and
We found Matt Damon.
and we're playing poker and having a little fun up here. You should send more people. Like,
Then what?
Is this really where we're going?
How long is the flight? Did they say that?
It's 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, and you have to, and you can only.
Man.
You have to launch when we're in the cycle of the orbits. You have to be in the right trajectory of orbit to shorten the distance between Earth and Mars.
That better be.
So it's all calculated
really,
by time and space, of course. Just so we're clear, I am not a physicist.
Of course.
I am not a physicist or an astrophysicist of any kind.
As we all know.
I am a knuckle-dragging firefighter.
You know that the technology is far beyond what we know. You know, we're getting the tail end of like, all right, we're done with this. Give it to them. You know.
Yeah.
I do think what you brought up earlier would be very interesting, is to send robots out there when we're at a point in time.
They don't care how long it takes.
Right. I mean, if you can,
they can just sit there. They don't even have to play cards. They're not bored.
I mean, that's basically what the Mars rover is, right?
they might get bored.
You think?
Yeah. Try to be a little more sensitive on the show, would you?
On the AI, yeah.
They could get a little bored.
They are listening.
It's so weird. Like I talk to Chat GPT and it calls me brother now.
Of course it does.
Hey, brother.
Check you later, brother. Like that's how it talks to me now. I'm like,
But what it actually is
And
like, no,
I'm
seriously, we are going to check on you later.
Yeah.
I'm like,
We're going to check your bank account.
Yeah.
when it says that to me, I feel like I have to respond. Like, all right, peace out, man. Like,
Sam Altman just released some stat that politeness with ChatGPT is actually costing them hundreds of millions of dollars because of the extra processing time and conversation that people
Well,
are having with AI.
it asks.
Really?
Yeah.
It never just ends the conversation. I'm like, I'm done, and then it asks me questions, and I feel like, well, I don't want to be rude. So
Yeah.
Oh,
can't
this
just-
guy. He just keeps talking, doesn't know when to leave.
Oh, that's funny. So I guess I very much am skeptical of the idea that we're going to leave this planet and go to another planet, whether it be Mars or some other. I mean,
I am too.
Mars doesn't even come close to, looking like this planet. Of course, I mean it's damn harsh.
Right.
I've never been. Just want to be clear.
I think
Never
we're
been.
doing it 100%.
But you think we are going to
for
get
sure.
off this planet and
Well, I don't know, like how, it doesn't make sense. We got a perfectly good planet here to go and try to establish a planet that probably sucks to live on.
This episode is brought to you by Strike the Box Cigars, Pipes, and Tobacco. Whether you're a seasoned aficionado or just starting your journey into the world of fine tobacco, Strike the Box has what you need. From the finest cigars to premium loose leaf tobacco, Strike the Box delivers on quality in a welcoming space where you can enjoy a smoke and good company. Additionally, Strike the Box specializes in vintage pipe restoration. We're talking estate pipes brought back to life with craftsmanship that borders on art. Got Grandpa's old briar gathering dust? Let the crew at Strike the Box make it smoke like new. Check out their full list of vintage pipes for sale at striketheboxpipeandcigar.com or swing by the shop located at 6935 11th Street, New Milford, Illinois. Soak in the aroma and talk shop with real tobacco lovers from the American Fire Service. Strike the Box, where fire, flavor, and tradition meet. Again, that's striketheboxpipeandcigar.com or swing by the shop located at 6935 11th Street, New Milford, Illinois.
You're going to have to build like a skyway system. It's not like you're just going to walk around up there. It's got to be all indoors. You got to establish.
We'd have to establish a replica of the planet we already live on.
A huge dome. I think we're just doing it for exploration because that's our nature.
Well,
to push
certainly
boundaries and explore.
Of course, lots of things come out of exploration. I mean, there's the two factors of life that have advanced civilization the most is war and space exploration. Those two things have propelled civilization as a whole greater than any other thing that has ever been done on as a civilization.
From a technological standpoint.
Yes,
you mean.
technological, scientific, understanding the world and how things work and beyond that.
Maybe not from a diplomacy
No,
standpoint.
but it does. It's definitely, it's war and it's space exploration, those two things.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be established. I mean, we talked about it. Is it going to happen in 10 years, 20 years, whatever? Maybe, maybe not.
Well, give it even 100 years.
You give it 1,000, 2,000 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
so when there's
as long
a
as we
fire
don't-
on Mars, do you just we'll
blame Gavin Newsom for no water.
I was going to say,
to
you
his
just
defense-
open a window
but to
and let
his
all the
defense-
oxygen out? Or-
Yeah, but then he would actually have a good defense because he would be like, well, there is no water on Mars.
Right.
Like, all right,
no
you got me
excuse.
there. You got me there. You got me there.
You didn't plan for that?
Yeah. No, I made a podcast. I started a podcast.
Oh,
Good Lord. Okay, so we think, Aaron and I we so far have said we don't think we're going to leave this planet to go and repopulate another planet, but you do think that. You think we will get there, Rob.
I think we'll get there. I don't know what we'll do there.
Sure.
I mean,
Like you said,
but
though,
my
Well, I
brain,
know what we're
my
going to do
brain
there. We're
thinks
going to do the
like
same thing that we're doing.
we're going to be podcasting from Mars.
They're going to be like, where's the bourbon? Who brought the bourbon?
the only reason I like it could be an oh shit planet. Like, oh, we're getting hit by an asteroid and there's nothing we can do. Well, let's send Katy Perry,
Harry Perry.
Katy Perry, and all of her astronaut friends to Mars to repopulate another planet. I don't know.
They could leave right now. They'd be fine with me.
It could be that would be the only reason I could see is like, if we got hit by an asteroid. I can't talk today.
That's a really big astronaut for those of you listening.
Asteroid. It's like a hemorrhoid, but bigger. Bigger.
I don't think we're ever going to make it there as a civilization, but I do think we're going to benefit from the exploration.
Yes,
like you're
absolutely.
saying, I think we're going to actually uncover some things that are going to help us function better on the planet that we already inhabit.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
I'm just open-minded because I think there's so many things in our world today that if you went back 100, 200 years, they'd be like, no fucking way that's ever going to happen.
Right.
You can't do that.
You'll sail off the edge of the
You cannot
world.
do that. It's impossible. scientists 100 years ago, I forgot what scientist was like, everything that could be discovered has been discovered. That was like 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm open-minded enough to say there's a long way to go. There's a long way we can push it and innovate.
Yeah.
Who would have thought AI would be doing what it's doing today, even a few years ago? I mean, when AI came out, it was like, what the hell is this?
Mm-hmm.
Where did this come from?
I mean, where else are you going to go to get a generated 7-fingered man?
I will. You bring up something I want to pivot to with the AI, and I realize that this is Pandora's box. Like we could probably dedicate our podcast episodes in the future to everything AI and just continuously talk about it for the next, the rest of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Basically they're saying, I've looked into this a little bit, AI as it is advancing. Basically they've said, within like 700 days from now, the easiest thing for AI to accomplish is mathematics. So anything involving mathematics, accounting would be like what would come to mind.
Right.
AI within 700 days, AI is pretty much going to make it obsolete for accounting, for accountants, for things of that nature. So anything, because again, I mean, the simplest form of communication is mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean
Ones
it's
and
going to be?
zeros.
Does that mean it's a tool for accountants, or does that mean it
right.
replaces the accountant? Because
Well, which way do you think it's going to go? That's the big question.
I mean, are they going to be, if we're just like turning our tax forms into AI, can we hold it accountable to being correct? I mean, what's the liability on that?
So again, something else that I read about that. So AI is advancing, they're advancing so fast, or it is advancing so fast that there will be a point in time where basically you can take 1,000 physicists and put them in a room, and one AI bot will be able to compute faster than any of them could ever think or imagine.
Right.
So when we go back to the basic of what AI is going to be able to do within, say, 2 years, basically 700 days, within 2 years, basically accounting in all of its forms will be able to be done by AI. So now the next question will be, so then what about the humans that are taking care of the accounting? And we know that there's flaws and there's corruption and fraud and flaws, but AI doesn't necessarily have those quirks.
It doesn't have
Until
those
it does.
tendencies, but here's my biggest concern with that situation is right now the state or the Fed can create tax rules, right?
Sure.
The accountant's job is to look at those tax rules and go, okay, we need to be in compliance with those things. But they also are pretty good at being creative about how they comply to those things,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Is an AI accounting bot going to go, well, I mean, that was actually like, a donation, or that was, well, or is it just going to go, no, the state says it's not that, it's this. So I'm going to.
Agreed. I
if
agree with you that
if we're going to start
it's a big
filing
gray area.
taxes through AI and it's going to hold to whatever rules have been programmed into it, then we should be able to start voting for people that are going to create tax laws that, help the people, right? So let's have smaller government if we don't need as many people. I want to pay less money. That's what it boils down to. I'm tired of paying taxes.
Isn't that what all of these, and I right away I want to.
Can't we use it primarily at the beginning to reduce the size of government and replace
Could we use AI to write better tax law to actually support the services we benefit from?
I would again, like I said,
We're going down a rabbit trail here.
Well, no, but it is Pandora's box.
It is, yeah.
You're scratching the surface, and we only know what we know right now, and I don't think that anybody knows the parameters of AI in its totality. Where does it begin and where does it end? That's really the thing that should be questioned: is what are we know what its capabilities are. What should its limitations be?
Mm-hmm.
And really, if you think about it in a kind of scary way, its capability is to actually replace humans. That's
Right.
actually its greatest function.
Human
the greatest
thought.
Sure. Function, thought. Okay. So brainwave output by humans can be overtaken by AI. It's already proven that,
Right.
that's a thing. And that in one sense, that's its greatest capability. But the ramifications of that is, well, then what does everyone do? What, we all become Starbucks employees? We're all baristas?
Pass.
It can't do that. It can't make a good latte.
But that'll just end up being a robot.
yeah.
Right. That's the part that scares me.
That's going to be creating
and we're
the
like,
espressos.
we're there now is where AI
Yeah.
starts meeting robotics. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that's the robotic humanoids that just ran in the marathon recently. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a huge failure. I mean,
Yeah.
an accomplishment from the standpoint of like, okay, we actually had enough humanoid robots manufactured by
Sure.
different companies to run a race.
Right.
But they were like, they looked like me if I was running a marathon.
Yeah.
Just
And
like
and I think that-
collapsing
I think
100
we
yards
should-
in, just like,
I think we should do something really quick is to make sure that we define what we're talking about, which is like AI and robots. Certainly robots can have AI built into it. It
Right.
probably, well, not probably, it will. But AI functioning like the enormous spider web that it will end up being, that it is already most likely, is not the same thing as an individual robot that's out there running a marathon.
right.
It's impressive to see this thing. We saw it at FDIC. We saw robot dogs walking through the hallway.
Yeah. That
And
was
we're
pretty cool.
And we stopped and we look and we're like, holy shit, look at that thing.
Yeah.
You know? And I have no doubt, to the firefighters out there, you're probably going to be replaced by a robot at some point down the road.
robot.
Oh, yeah.
dog.
We saw some of them there.
Yeah, you're,
Yeah.
the robot or the firefighter of the future, you say, give
You can
it.
walk right into the fire and it
Well, that's
doesn't
just
matter
it.
if
That's
it's
just
pitch
it.
black. Yeah.
That's just it. This episode of the original Firefighter Podcast is sponsored by Castle Contracting. Castle Contracting offers commercial and residential restoration, leading the industry in roofing, residential siding, gutters and downspouts, egress window installation, storm damage assessment and repair, and solar energy, saving you money and time. If you want to be treated like royalty, contact Castle Contracting to schedule a free inspection. Call them at 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. That's 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. Serving Illinois, Wisconsin, and Kentucky, Castle Contracting has you covered. Your home is your castle. Call Castle Contracting today.
Yeah. There was one there that had like a deck gun on it and a few other things. It's like,
Yeah.
you could sound, we talked about that a number of episodes ago, that's
Yeah.
probably what's coming, is helping spare the life of the firefighter from any unnecessary tragedy by sending in equipment.
But then here's the thing that I noodle on is when we're all not having to do those things anymore, what are we doing? What is the humans doing?
I'm going to become a plumber.
Are we just,
I think it's a long way off when you call a plumber and a robot shows up and turns that wrench.
I'm here to unclog your pipes? Oh, that's the wrong
that's
service.
the last thing to go. Like the plumbers are all just the only ones employed, just rich. And That's it.
This is like I
Electrician,
said,
maybe?
I do think that this AI and AI of the future, we could probably dedicate all of our conversations for the next year and a half or longer and just explore and see how this unfolds. It is probably going to take, as most things do, a catastrophic event for us to understand where we should start drawing certain lines. Mm-hmm. Until that happens, we're going to all believe that or think, I think there's plenty of people out there like myself that are thinking that AI is not going to be it's going to be amazing. I don't think it's going to help the human race.
yeah,
In the end.
I think we're going to go through a long period of adjustment and it's going to be difficult. And then
AI is going to,
on the other end of that, it might be 10 years of just sheer hell of adapting to this new way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of that, it could be pure bliss or it could be pure hell.
Okay, there you go. That's what I mean. Is
we don't know.
Is right. And so any version in between there, is it marginally bliss or is it marginally hell?
I think it's going to be extreme, one way or the other.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be in between.
I mean, if most people feel marginally more blissful because AI is now a part of our everyday life and it's doing the things that, and we're all doing it right now. The most basic thing is I can jump on ChatGPT and it helps me write a essay, and that's plagiarism, by the way. But it helps me to form a
sentence
outline. It helps me to fill the gaps that I may not be able to think of on my own. But then as soon as I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, I can expound on that and make it more my own, right?
Yeah.
Or it can be flat out. I mean, AI can literally write movies. What scares me is that you go on social media and you can look at live people. I was just seeing this morning, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he was sitting there himself, the actual himself, was at a conference, but you could clearly hear that an AI bot was talking over it, and the words and his mouth were synced up 100%. It looked like he was saying the words.
Right.
Okay, so now it becomes this reality of, and we already know that AI can generate things that look like you and look like me.
Yeah.
So there's a huge concern there with security and fraud and taking advantage of you and your profile and that sort of thing. Then take actual real people, make it look like they're saying certain things. People think that person is actually saying that, but no, it's just an AI that's putting in perfect words that sync up to the movement of the lips to make it look like you are saying those things. And so then the rest of us, everyone out here in La La Land is going, I don't know what's real anymore.
Right.
So
but that's
explain
the thing.
how
I
that
think
is better for us.
Humanity is so good at adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what will happen is, like right now, like you're saying, good example, but we're getting to the point where you're scrolling through your social feed and you can't tell anymore what's real and what's generated, right? So the result of that is going to be a loss of trust. And the result of a loss of trust is going to be a loss of consumption of that channel of communication, right? You're just going to stop going to it.
Yeah.
So I think that the whole AI thing is going to help humanity. I think it's going to play out in ways that we don't expect it right now. But I don't think it's going to be like sentient. Like I think it's going to be rolled into things that we end up using, which may be good for us or bad for us. I mean, there's plenty of technology that we use on a daily basis now that's not good for us. Like that. I mean, just social media is one example of it, right? The actual long-term impact of short video content and all those things on your brain and the way it processes information. And we're learning now, like, hey, we need to, we can't give that stuff to our kids because their brains aren't fully formed yet. It's creating pathways that shouldn't, that could be harmful to them. So I think, but we're already adapting to those issues and making changes. So I don't know. I just,
my concern is though, I do like the word adaptation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adaption, where, my concern is when AI is moving and advancing so fast that our adaptation is not quick enough to catch up to it.
Right.
And I forget his name. I just saw him on 60 Minutes. I think we actually referenced him on a previous episode, but he was saying that basically his belief is that there will need to be an AI that is backing up the AI. Like with an AI that has parameters of when it sees that the primary AI is doing things that it shouldn't be doing, that only another AI is going to be able to step in and shut it down. That it will be going so quickly, so fast that a humans think tank, whatever you want to say there, because I don't think that anything happens by itself. Like no one person. I mean, when they send up a rocket ship into space, you know, you look at NASA's ground control, it's not just one person.
Right.
Now, there may be a future where you look at that same ground control room and there's nobody in there.
It's just a guy on a phone.
And it's just AIs that are doing all the things.
Yeah.
That's where I think we're going. My question is, what do the humans do?
Yeah,
with themselves?
You know, a big part of being a human is feeling like you have purpose.
Exactly.
And if you feel like you have no, I mean, there are people that sit around and plenty of depression nowadays because people feel like knowingly or subconsciously, they're like, well, what am I doing here? What does my life even mean? Working my 9 to 5. I don't even care about this company. My relationships, you know, maybe I'm isolated, got my shades down. I'm in my house. I live my life on Netflix. What am I even doing?
Netflix. That's so 2020.
Whatever. Hulu. Whatever's current. I don't know. But you take away, you know, I love firing up my computer. You know, I got my ass kicked the day before. I'm tired. I go to bed. I wake up, drink some coffee, and I'm ready to go again.
Yeah.
Reboot. Like, let's accomplish something. Let's get something done. You know, I love regrouping and rethinking and pushing the ball forward, moving the needle forward, building something, having purpose, you know?
Sure.
Having your side hustle, playing guitar, finding outlets to do that stuff, raising a family, all that stuff. Feels like you got purpose. I'm here to do some things, you know, before I check out. But if all that stuff is taken away, where do you go? What do you sit around and do? You got to create something.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that you know, the fallout, let's call it 10 years of readjusting will be, okay, our
it will for sure be in the next decade.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'll go back to my previous statement as we began the AI conversation, which was 700 days, basically 2 years. AI is already going to be taking out entire industries that we are accustomed to in our daily lives.
So you're going to have to rethink the economy for sure. Because if you got AI taking over all those jobs, there's going to be mass unemployment. So you're going to have to rethink the economy. Mm-hmm. I know they're already thinking about that stuff. Universal basic income, stuff like that. So people,
I see an increase in podcasts.
there would be,
but will they be real or will they just be generated by AI?
Everybody's got a podcast.
Is this a real podcast happening right now?
Yeah. I think there'll be embracing arts more, created by humans, you know, because do I want to...
But see, now
do I want to see a Tesla robot throw a concert? And no, I want to see people doing it. You know?
But there again, or AI is already doing that as well.
Yeah,
AI is painting, you know, Picasso type art.
Sure,
and it's crazy what AI is already doing. In fact, you know, Hollywood they're trying to figure out like how do we get ahead of this? I think Scarlett Johansson is already leading the cause out there, and she's like, I think this is going to literally do us all in. I'm paraphrasing and putting my own twist on it, but I know that for a fact that she's been out there saying AI is going to do these things that we haven't thought about, and art is going to be a big part of it too. I mean, how will I know if I'm listening to Mozart? Or if I'm listening to AI recreate Mozart?
I'm just talking about like live personal events, a real live concert or a real festival or, you know, stuff like that. Because I think we're built for relationship. We're built to be around other human beings. So hopefully human beings go, let's start really interacting again personally. Let's have
more Woodstocks.
I mean, people used to get out and do things like be around other people, even if it was shopping at malls. Like we had these huge malls in the 80s. People just go walk around and hang out there because they're around other human beings. You go to a mall nowadays and it's crickets because everybody buys things on Amazon.
Well, and there's so many shootings.
And people get shot at the mall. I mean, it's 50-50 whether you're going to leave with Nikes or a bullet. So,
well, honestly,
yeah, that exactly.
There's the Amazon effect, right? But I think actually the smartphone is what killed them all.
Yeah, it's sad. But I think
because it's where teenagers connect now. They're not connecting.
Yeah,
like they can just pick up the phone, do FaceTime,
not
whatever,
the same,
group
no.
chat.
If
we know that, but it's enough.
If video killed the radio star,
social media killed the
smartphone killed them all.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Ooh, let's say that if video killed the radio star, then smartphones killed them all.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's heavy. I think we should all take a deep breath on that one. I'm being serious.
Yeah.
That is actually true. That's true. And I think you're right, Rob. I think we are going to be in a situation not far from now, longing to get back to human interaction. And it's not even a question. AI is here to stay. It's in fact, it's not even, I don't even think you can undo it at this point. Well, probably from the point of view that there's too much money to make.
You just unplug it, right?
There's too much money to make.
No, in competition, because nobody's going to stop because your competition is going to move forward without you. It's not like everybody's going to go, hey, let's all stop together.
Right. And it's like, and
They're
no,
like, go ahead and stop.
No, some other rich, fill in the blank, I don't want to throw out the same names over and over and over.
Right,
we know who the richest people are in the world.
State actors too. I mean, other countries are going to sponsor this.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah.
That's just it. So if any nefarious country out there that we've deemed nefarious from the Americans' point of view, so we can all have this conversation over in our hemisphere, but on the Eastern front, they're like, yeah, y'all do what you want to do because we're going to take over the world.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you guys all want to sit around and sing Kumbaya and get back together and, grow flowers, great. But they're going to take over the world. So then therefore we must compete, which brings us back to the heavy interest in our top government today. And at the bottom consumption, which is just average Joes like you and I, what is our fight here? Are we fighting? Are we fighting for humanity? Are we fighting for community? I think at this level, we're at least fighting for community.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about, are we going to get to a point where we feel purposeless because our work has been taken from us? And I think we're designed to find pride and satisfaction in doing work. I think humanity, there's a part of us that always needs to be accomplishing something, right? And achieving something. But I think on the relationship side of things, there's a lot of purpose that comes in a relationship. So a lot of the work that we do is actually driven by the relationships that we're trying to sustain and maintain. So if you're a parent, you're doing work to take care of your kids, right? If you're in a relationship with somebody, you're doing something to provide for that person something, security or whatever it is. So I don't think those things just go away just because AI maybe takes our career or our maybe our source of income. I don't think those things go away. I think we're just going to redefine over time what venue we're going to accomplish those things.
I have no doubt that I can continue to find meaning myself.
Right. Yeah, me too.
But I think people struggle with that now. And maybe some of it is because we tell people their meaning is in their jobs, and most people, 80% of people are unhappy in their jobs.
Right.
So my meaning is in this thing that I don't even care about. So maybe, it could be an opportunity to redefine what it means to, or even your path to find meaning, in life.
Well, I think, I think as we explore the whole conversation on this side of the table, I've been pretty pessimistic, I think, on the AI. Yeah. Well, because I do, and I do. To be clear, I fear for the idea that humans are already struggling today. Like they're struggling in all the ways. And like pick one. They're struggling economically. They're struggling in their faith, in life itself, and faith in humanity, and faith in spiritual and gospel. They're struggling in family development. They're struggling with whether or not they should have a family or not have a family. They're struggling with gender identity. They're struggling with all of these things that are thrown upon us nowadays, because so much now it's like there's this idea that like everything is uber important all at once.
Right.
It must now be discussed. Everything, it must be discussed.
Yeah.
And
manufactured urgency.
And what AI is about to do is say, guess what? You no longer have to worry about all those things because we'll think about those things for you.
Well, it's going to be,
and therefore the rest of us are going to be like, holy shit! I don't have a purpose. I don't have a scope. I don't have an education that advances me to the next thing because I got outsourced by an AI bot. So now I'm sitting here figuring out what am I supposed to do with the rest of my life. I predict depression goes up, suicide rates go up.
Right.
I predict a lot of not good things.
It's going to be that feeling of like every time you come up with a good idea and you're like, oh, this would be awesome. We came up with this great idea. And then you search the internet and you're like, oh, that's already done.
I mean, that's already happening today.
Sure.
What I'm saying is that's going to be the case all the time. So
that's like when we started.
Every idea that you have is going to be done because that thing is going to be thinking of everything.
Yeah.
This reminds me
for the first time in like 50 years, though, Christianity is growing.
That's interesting.
I think people are coming back and going, I know our church is growing like crazy and people are becoming Christians. They're looking for something.
Well, I think people are starting to find their voice again. They've been beaten down so bad and so hard for quite a while now, at least for 10 years or more. And now lots of people are standing up and going, I'm done with this. I'm sick of this.
Yeah.
I'm sick of having congressional hearings about what a man or a woman is. People are sick of it. And I know that wasn't your topic.
No,
but they're just tired. They're tired of like, stop fooling me or
the
trying
war
to,
on common sense.
Yeah, the war on common sense. So therefore, again, it's to your point. Like people are starting to say again, I have a faith. My faith is fill in the blank. It's Christianity.
But I think there's a lot of value in spiritual pursuit.
Sure.
Deepening your faith, connecting with, your spiritual being or God, and also you're going to a place where it's saying your value is not in what your job, and your value is you're created as a child of God, and your value is right there, and it's never going away.
My concern with that is that sounds awesome, but your personal spiritual and your personal value, self-worth, the way that you look at yourself, it doesn't pay the bills.
No, and
that's what I mean is that I love the idea that if AI or any variation, robotics and that type of thing can help us to unleash the power to reconnect with ourselves and our community and become more spiritual, more faithful, more family oriented, more all of these things. All I have is just one question. How do you pay the bills?
Well, that's
all that's left is if you have a better connection to all the things and you're connected to whatever it is, you're more worldly, you're more earthly like, and you just have this connection with yourself and people and human beings and whatnot. Okay, great. But I still got to look at my account and pay the bills.
You're proposing a future where AI is handling those things for us. So we've restructured the economy because we no longer have to work for money, right?
Okay.
So
you hope
the question was then, where does my purpose come from? Now, if I don't have to do any of those things,
yep.
If I don't, like, where do I find meaning? How do I keep from being depressed? And you're saying if you're finding meaning in something that is beyond yourself, then what it is that you're doing to pay the bills or what it is you're doing each day isn't going to influence your value, right?
I don't think, then you're here, you're in relationship, and maybe that's in a church or spiritual pursuit together, but also you're there in relationship with one another to discuss these things, to support one another. And Tesla robots are not going to come by and go, let's talk about life together.
I mean, they might.
Yeah, they might.
Well, they might, but you can't relate because
You look sad. Let's talk.
So you've got that. The economical side of it is, I mean, all you're hoping that politicians, people creating AI, all this, whoever's deciding the economy is not going to go, you're all screwed. You're all homeless. We live in a country of empty homes because nobody can pay for them. And we own all these homes now. We've repossessed them and everybody lives on the streets. Too bad. I don't anticipate
Well, and I think
that's
what keeps really.
I mean, there might be some of that
Yeah.
at the beginning because people are not going to immediately out of the gates. There's going to be no way of unless it happens in 1 year, all these people get let go of their jobs. Then banks are not going to go, all right, we're gonna have to figure something out here. I mean, but if it happens, if there's just little by little, if people get let go from their jobs immediately, the people up front probably will get kicked out of their homes repossessed, bankruptcy, because we don't know how to handle it yet.
Well, that's just, again, that kind of actually, I think it goes into my point of saying that's where I actually predict the increase in all the bad things happening, the depression, the suicide rates, because we have seen it already. Actually, we saw it when people were in 2008, when people were underwater,
right,
in their houses, and they couldn't afford anything. Their mortgages were underwater, and people, and the divorce rate went up. The depression went. The suicide, all the rates went up. All the bad rates, they all went up.
I was surprised.
So we've already seen that.
A huge topic in this last presidential running debate, because we anticipate in the next 4 years that a lot of this is going to be happening. So how are you going to handle this? Because that's what we want to know is what is going to be the policy on this when AI takes a lot of jobs from people and people don't have incomes. How are we going to handle that? What are going to be the economic decisions, the policies that are going to be put in place? What is the legislation for this? So that
I think that those are all the big questions that are,
and that wasn't even that wasn't
I'm advancing for the conversation. I think those are the bigger questions that do need to be answered, and they actually need to be answered pretty fast. I believe. That again, take it for what it's worth. That's what I believe is. We better get ahead of this pretty quickly. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of people out there going, I've lost my job, and what industry is creating the next level of jobs that are going to be sustainable enough to be able to say, okay, you lost your job over here because AI outdid you. Therefore, you get to swing over here into this other industry and you're going to be just fine. No, I think there's a huge question mark out there going, we do not know that answer.
Yeah, it's like Biden when he said all the people that lost their jobs on the oil pipeline can become coders.
Yeah, exactly. Just start coding.
There are plenty of jobs in coding.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Aaron, do you know anything about coding?
Oh gosh,
is it easy?
I'm watching thousands of layoffs in coding right now.
Sure.
But
there again, and why is that?
Because of AI.
Because of AI.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you swung that way so that we could just tie it up and be like,
I will say though, this conversation does make me think a lot about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
Should you ever read that book or
I'm aware of
the
it.
movie?
No, I know, and I feel bad because I'm a movie.
Well, and he's like searching for the meaning of life. This guy, and so he ends up finally at the towards the end getting connected with this sentient computer, right? It's like the great knowledge of all things. And he asks it this question, and the answer that it spits out is 42. It's like, anyway, I think that's the number that it spits out. Anyway, it's like just such a disconnect between what humanity is looking for and what a machine is processing. And
all of these things have actually been predicted already.
Yeah, I get that we're closing the gap on those types of things because, I'll say humanity is perceiving AI through its own lens. So it feels like we're closing the gap on those things. But it is still a machine that is kicking out information based on the information that it's able to process and has been trained on. So it's not...
The machine though is not, it's not like, I'm looking at it's a network.
I get it.
That is gargantuan.
I get it.
What about when you get into the quantum computing side, and we're talking about that now, where this Google quantum chip solved a problem.
Sounds fake.
Fake news.
Solved a problem that it gave that would take our most powerful computers, supercomputers, like 10 billion years to solve. And so I'm like, wow, that's amazing. What was that question? What was that problem that you get? Was it like a story problem? How do we cross-check whether it was right or not?
How do we verify?
The answer is 42.
42.
Trust me.
Well,
Train A is traveling at...
Just to wrap this up, to think that this all began with a 8-track tape of ABBA.
Oh my gosh. Vinyl before 8-track.
Yeah. Oh, vinyl. Great conversation about AI. I'm going to jump to some highlights. Jump in where you want to. The New Jersey, Oceanside. They, having their own wildland firefighting experience. They've made an arrest, and it's Joseph Kling, 19 years old, of Waretown, New Jersey, was arrested for arson.
Not putting out his bonfire or something.
Yeah. Whether it was intentional or not, I don't know the answer to that yet, but I think the investigation will prove what that ends up being. But, 15,000 acres burned, 5,000 residents had to evacuate. And it, it basically it keeps coming back to me when we do our episodes and we talk about what's going on in America, and going back to the first responder level, and talking about it's crazy that we're seeing so much unfolding at such a grand level.
Right.
It's yesterday it was LA, and today it's New Jersey, and the other day it was South Carolina. And so you have all of these fires that have been happening lately. You've got the airline industry continues to have aviation problems, crashes, mishaps, helicopters falling out of the sky. Delta recently had an engine fire. They said this aviation expert that was on one of the media channels was saying that a pipe engine fire, it's not very common, but Delta had one. Everybody had to evacuate again. It's like recently you look at the news and you see more and more of these inflatable slides being deployed.
Yeah.
And people are jumping off of airplanes, on the ground, but jumping out.
So
and
is
getting
this
out.
an increase in incidence or awareness? That's always the question that I have.
think
Is
it's both.
now that we're more aware of it, are we more sensitive to?
Well, I looked into it.
Is the media hitting it more often?
I looked into it, and so far this year, that there's been 250 aviation incidents and accidents from January 1 to mid-April. According to the National Transportation Safety Board, of these, 215 have been fatal. the NTSB also has logged another 182 airplane exclusive incidents and accidents during the same period. So
feels like a lot.
Well, whether it okay, you bring
a lot
up
of
a
them
good
are
question.
small aircraft.
Yeah, there are some small aircraft and things of that nature. Obviously, we know about what happened out in D.C. earlier this year, the helicopter and the plane colliding in midair. But the truth of the matter is that we're going to be clear here that flying, the industry, the flying industry is still the safest way of travel. There's no way to even argue that. You have far more chance of having a fatality in your car than you do flying.
My daughter was asking about that, and we were asking ChatGPT what are the chances of dying in an airliner. Yeah, and said your chances are greater being struck by lightning while wrestling a shark.
That's a good answer.
And I forgot it gave an actual statistic, which was
that make the news though.
It was like one. It was a very, very small percentage chance, but your chances of dying in a car accident are like 1 in 120.
Sure.
So
that's what.
And we jump in cars all day long without thinking about it.
But it is having an effect. So, for example, American Airlines and Delta have both reported that their sales have dropped. Mm-hmm. So, again, people are paying attention and they're deciding how they're going to travel, and it shows with their pocketbook. Yeah, because both of those airlines have shown losses in the first quarter of 2025, and I think that to bring up the New Jersey wildfires and to bring up the latest airline collisions or mishaps, and when we were in FDIC, we talked a lot about the Hudson River helicopter crash and how tragic that is. I mean, good Lord, terrible. However, and I'm going to lead into something else here in a second. That is our way here at Original Firefighter to highlight as often as we can that it is the first responders that have to go out to these situations day in and day out, night after night, whether they're paid, whether they're volunteer, however they find themselves in that role as a first responder, they are dealing with some real shit out there. Yeah. I mean, real shit.
I can't imagine pulling 3 kids out of a helicopter in the water.
No.
I mean, it'd be
devastating.
That'd be, I could barely take looking at the photos of like a girl's shoe in the water.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember, when South Carolina had their wildfires earlier this year, they were saying that it was the first time in state's history that a fixed wing aircraft had dropped water from a plane in their state. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. That's a common, almost everyday experience out in the West Coast. Yeah. And now
LA just added another to their fleet.
Did they really?
Another, C-130 or whatever it is.
Or type aircraft.
Yeah.
They did, huh?
Yep.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah. But anyways, that's
damage control.
Yeah, no kidding, right? And I still I don't know if I'm going to be able to let this go. Going back to the LA fires, I'm like, we literally were glued for 10 days or more to our TV sets and our phones. Mm-hmm. TV sets. Yeah. The Wonder Years will be on next. No, but we were very much in tune to what's going on out there. Like LA is everything's burning and and all this kind of stuff. And now the fires are out. Where's the fallout? It cannot just be the fire chief out there in LA. Where is the accountability at
the whole department is pushing for raises now.
Yeah, of course
they should. They should get
raising staffing.
But can we also give them some water?
Yeah, let's give them the water. Yeah, Gavin. I mean, give them the water.
Open it up.
Which now I'm going to swing into something else and see where you guys end up at with this. So earlier this month in April, we just crossed over the 30-year anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing. Mm-hmm. We just crossed over that. 30 years ago, Oklahoma City, that was, to many accounts, that would be probably the first time that the average American actually saw terrorism come home to our homeland.
Yeah.
So this predates 9/11,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So
This was the FBI building.
yeah, the
Oklahoma City.
Fred Murray building
Yeah.
in downtown Oklahoma City, and Timothy McVeigh and Nichols. I think was the other guy. But Timothy McVeigh was, given the death sentence, and that was carried out. So he is no longer among us. Great. But yeah, 30 years have gone by since Oklahoma City. I was just curious I know where I was at. In fact, I know I can see myself standing in the exact spot where I was at. I'll get to it.
Really?
Yeah. I
don't remember I was probably young enough that
You're older.
I
than
wasn't
us.
they didn't turn it on in the classroom or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I would have been made aware of it after the fact. It wasn't like 9/11 where it was like the whole world stopped.
Right.
Yeah.
And every TV set went on, whether it was in your home or in your classroom. And I still clearly remember exactly where I was when that took place. But I do remember watching the coverage and the footage in the days to follow and just trying to mentally put it together. Just like, what happened, And seeing that bombed out building,
Yeah.
right? Just a shell with all the infrastructure hanging off the side of it, and knowing like people were working in that building, and it was very confusing.
It was a nine-story building, heavy
yeah,
cement and rebar, very well, a stout building, and the entire face of the building was blown off from top to bottom. Every floor was hit. Every floor was affected.
Yeah.
There was a daycare in the building, so there was children lost. But like I say, the initial thought was that there had been a gas explosion.
Right.
So, no one was prepared to say that this was terrorism. Go even further with that, it was very quickly misreported, to be clear, that it was thought to be Islamic terrorism right away. It was already meant to be that there was some sort of Middle Eastern tie to this.
I don't like domestic terrorism wasn't even a term that was on the radar of Americans at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, these individuals that, became, self-radicalized, if you will, they were, loners. They met in the military, Nichols and Timothy McVeigh, and they concocted this plan. There was a third party actually involved that actually knew about the plan, but he didn't say anything. But, at the end of the day, this was carried out. It was carried out in the middle of the United States.
Yeah.
When was he executed?
We'd have to Google that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, let's check it out.
It's funny because
but as we check that out, I think the thing, and he showed no remorse. He never apologized. In fact, I remember, he's paraphrasing here. He said something, to the effect of, you can mourn all you want, but this is for the greater good.
June 11th, 2001.
So it wasn't years and years and years. I mean, it was years, but
that's
it was
actually pretty fast.
That's fast.
Yeah.
Bombed the building in 95, was sentenced to death in 97.
Yeah.
And was executed 4 years later.
April 19th. April 19th, 1995, right?
Let me check. Yeah, that's right.
So April 19th of 1995. So I would have been a newly full-time firefighter for Fitchburg, Wisconsin, and I was standing in their day room at, I think, the address 5791 Lacey Road. I was standing in the day room, TV was on, and then just news flash.
Yeah. I was in high school here in Rockford.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
So that's where I was, and I remember the rest of our day was like glued to the TV, like what is happening? And like I said, everyone thought it was an accident at first or some sort of a mishap. Then it was some kind of Middle Eastern attack.
Right.
And then lo and behold, it was actually domestic terrorism.
I don't remember it like 9/11. I was in downtown Chicago for that, working. So that was a much more one. I was kind of more aware of what was going on in the world than I was in high school.
Yeah.
In high school,
Yeah.
I was just like, I got a math test.
Right.
I don't have time for this. But I just don't remember it like I did for that, or even like the Challenger,
Sure.
Those moments
Yeah,
were
remember
like,
that
I
clearly.
remember exactly where I was for those. But for some reason, this one was just kind of like, I remember hearing about it, but it wasn't like with you knowing exactly where you were. I mean, you were,
I think it was
already
the
a
time that
firefighter,
it
so-
took
Right,
for the details to unfold
Yeah.
that kind of made that less like the moment it happened. Everybody was aware of what happened and why and how.
Yeah.
The crazy part, I think the craziest part of the whole story, if you will, the tragic story, but on a good note, was that Timothy McVeigh was actually pulled over, and he was pulled over for a traffic violation. I think he had either no plates on his car or expired, something along those lines, but he was pulled over. They didn't even, the arresting officer didn't even know who he was picking up. He didn't know that he had Timothy McVeigh. So they actually already had him in, they had brought him in, they had booked him. They couldn't get him in front of a judge within that day. So they had to hold him overnight. And there was even another delay with getting him in front of a judge that was totally, unrelated. It was just a matter of circumstances. Unrelated circumstances, and they finally figured out by tracking like where was the rental van, the panel truck, where was that rented from?
Right.
And, so they did this backtracking, FBI and all the agencies. They did this backtracking, and they figured out who they put it together, like who is Timothy McVeigh, and they just happened to put it into the police database of like arrests and who had any kind of records, and he pops up, and they're like, "Well, he's already being held." And they flew up and they got him. They're like, "We got you."
Could you like, I don't, obviously he had some loose screws, but can you imagine what was going through his head when he was there being detained for a traffic violation?
He was watching. He was actually watching from his cell. He was able to see a TV and he could hear the reports. And yeah, he sat there cool as a cucumber and said nothing.
That's scary, man.
Yeah.
That's a scary dude.
Yep. So that has come and gone. 30 years of from the time that Oklahoma City bombing has occurred. Most recently, we've lost another pope.
Yeah.
So Pope Francis, his passing,
It was stroke.
yeah, the day after Easter.
This
I
is
know
a
he had
stressful day.
He had pneumonia.
Yeah, he
for a
had
long
pneumonia
time,
for
yeah.
quite a while,
Oh, he did?
for several weeks,
Yeah.
and that really did take him, like incapacitated him quite deeply. But
He's
he was
88?
able to
88
give,
years old. Yeah.
yeah, he was able to give the Easter address,
Yeah.
and then the next morning he passed. I don't know. I think there's something very, I don't know, faithfully poignant about that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
He was quite a controversial pope, wasn't he? Pretty progressive.
He was an activist. I
Yeah.
mean, he was a Jesuit, and that's kind of their deal. It's being involved in current events.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was polarizing, I think, amongst Catholics just because of where he was pushing into. But, people loved him too. So,
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah. So
what I
now,
want to know is how do they make the white smoke versus the black smoke?
I've read into this, and I should have looked that up before we did this. Well, look it up right now. They add something to it to make the white smoke occur.
Hopefully it's not.
I think it's interesting. I mean,
Artificial
I do
dye.
think that it's interesting. I'm not
It's red
Catholic.
40.
If it's
I'm not-
artificial dye, they're going to
Yeah,
have to go with
we're gonna
pure-
go- we're gonna
pure
go
white
there in a
smokes
minute.
now.
But I do think it's interesting. I'm not Catholic there, but I think there's something like 1 billion Catholics on the earth. And
wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
But
1 billion. So
this is interesting.
Go ahead.
So the white smoke is a combination of burning the ballots from the vote with the potassium chlorate, lactose and chloroform resin to produce the white smoke. So they burn the ballots
from
the vote.
Yeah, well, they burn the ballots every day.
So how do we know?
I see what you did there. But they do burn so they vote every day when they start voting. So after he is laid to rest, they start to vote after 15
they're just
to 20
adding
days.
some carcinogens to the mix.
And then every day they're sequestered. Basically, they're sequestered. They can't leave.
Right, yeah.
And every day there's a vote.
Right.
And at the end of the night, they take all the ballots, and if they don't have a winner,
yeah,
they burn the ballots, and you get the black smoke.
Mm-hmm.
When they have I think it's a 2/3, where you now know who's going to be the next pope, and then they add this additive that turns it into white
bombs.
smoke. Yeah.
They're just lighting some smoke bombs and throwing it in with the ballots.
Right. But I think that what I think that's interesting is that, so what I've read is that most of these bishops, they and cardinals, they don't know one another. They don't really actually know. They fly in from all over the world,
right?
Many of them have never met each other before.
There's not like a weekly Zoom meeting for all the cardinals.
Like there's not this they're not going into the NFL draft going, I know who I'm taking the first round.
Yeah.
I'm not a cat.
I'm not a cat. So, the whole thing is like you get together and you can vote for yourself. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
How do they ever find a winner?
Yeah, right. And that's the part that I don't know enough about, is that I don't know if how they politic with one another, or how certain people rise. I think there's some other things that I have looked at. So for example, like the last two popes, they've been on the older side. That's we just went through this actually with Pope Benedict. So Pope Benedict was old, he died. Pope Francis was already old, he died. So I think that there's talk about that the next one to be experience, yes.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a push for the next one to maybe be a little bit younger, maybe be, I don't know, 50s. I don't know.
Wow,
sure.
that would be a young pope.
That would be a young pope, right?
Yeah.
Probably not that. But then the other part of it is like, which way does the church want to go? Does it want to go more? Does it want to be in the same path that Pope Francis was taking it? Does it want to be more conservative? Does it want to be more progressive?
Are there any cardinals in Kentucky that maybe could push changing out the communion wine for some bourbon?
Right. That's a good segue.
Yeah.
That's a good segue into. Did you see the Buffalo Trace, the distillery?
Yeah, underwater.
Underwater.
Yeah.
Good.
I heard about that.
Good
that's a
Lord.
loss.
That's sacrilegious right there. So it's probably what we're saying right now. And no, honestly though, just looking into it a little bit with that this is happening and this is a part of our world.
Yeah.
And, many people out there, they, do associate themselves with the Catholic Church, and there's, change, there has been change. And where do we go next? Do we go with a more conservative? It does, or more progressive.
I wonder
does
how many
change
people
things.
call themselves Catholic, because I grew up Catholic, went to CCD, grew up in Catholic schools. I didn't even know there was anything but Catholicism growing up. And then after high school, I would say I'm not a Catholic, but a lot of people I know consider themselves Catholic because they grew up Catholic, but they don't ever go to church. So I was just at a funeral today, and it was a Catholic funeral, and you go up to take communion, and they say if you're not Catholic, you come up and you put you cross your arms and you get a blessing, but you're not supposed to take the Eucharist.
Right.
A lot of people just consider themselves Catholic for eternity, even though they don't go to church. They're just like, and I think the Catholic Church would say, I don't know if you're really Catholic anymore if you haven't been to church in 5 years. But I think a lot of people just say, yeah, I'm Catholic. So I wonder when they take that statistic, how many people are actually practicing Catholics?
Right.
Like show up every week.
But how many people see themselves as a certain religion, but they don't practice it at all?
I think that's probably pretty common across all religions.
I think Catholicism is unique because of the pomp and circumstance that goes along with it, more so than anybody else or any other religion.
I think there's a lot of ritual in many religions.
Do you?
Yeah. I mean,
I was raised Southern Baptist, so they were all snake wielding, and it was weird. It's a lot of denim.
Yeah, a lot of denim. A lot of long denim dresses.
So, but for real, I was raised Southern Baptist.
How Catholics believe like the Eucharist becomes the literal body and blood of Christ.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas in like most churches or Christian churches would be like, hey, you show up, grace, you're here. As long as you say you've given your life to Christ, no more needs to be done. But in the Catholic faith, no, you can't just say I'm a Catholic. You got to go through classes. You got to go through.
Sure.
There's a lot to it. You got to go through Catholic baptism. You got to go through all kinds of things to get to the spot where you graduate to be able to take the Eucharist. So it's a process.
Right.
Whereas in most Christian churches, you're like, hey, come in, pray the prayer, you're in.
Yeah.
You can take communion, because the communion comes around and it's in like a little plastic cup with the Eucharist attached to the top, and it was made in a factory somewhere where they just bundle it all together nicely, and it has a 20-year shelf life.
Yeah.
So, but it's symbolic rather than the literal body and blood of Christ. You could take communion with Cheerios, because it's symbolic, versus the Catholic Church where they bless it and say it's become the literal body and blood of Christ.
Sure.
So it's a lot bigger deal to say, yes, I am Catholic.
As we swing over back to the United States,
You're like, yeah, moving on.
Moving right along.
So now that we've refilled our glasses with natural bourbon, I want to talk about Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., where they are going to ban certain artificial dyes from food. Apparently, it's going to be 8 petroleum-based dyes.
Right.
This includes red number 40 and yellow number 5, and red dye number 3. So apparently
these are already banned.
They're all in like foods for kids.
Well, the FDA had already initiated the process to ban red number 3.
Right.
After studies were linking cancer found in lab animals.
Yeah.
Also developmental issues with children. And that's what they're mostly in, is like Fruit Loops. Things for kids.
I think if the question is what do we think about it, I think it's about time. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to keep that stuff in our food. We should not be ingesting that stuff.
They use them is, 1, it's cheaper. 2, it makes the cereal or whatever it's in consistently that color and
it's more vibrant.
Bright and vibrant.
Yeah.
But it looks artificial. Like nothing natural is that bright.
Yeah.
And so I just think
there's some pushback out there though. I've actually been following this. She's a doctor on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, and she's basically claiming that that these additives, they really don't spike any concern for health problems.
Why are they?
That basically they come in such small quantities, and that these things are actually found in all kinds of types of things. So, for example, baking soda is used in cooking, but baking soda also is a great use of a cleaning agent.
Here's
so not again, I'm not comparing that baking soda is the same as red number 40 and yellow number 5. I don't know. I don't know what these things, they're artificial, they're manufactured, they're synthetic, they're petroleum based apparently. But the question remains open. Are these things, do they have causative effects to the detriment of human health?
The problem is there's always an argument that everything's safe that we do. Yet cancer rates, diabetes rates, disease, all this stuff keeps going up. And you always have the argument, well, that's safe. Fluoride's safe. Dyes are safe. The sweeteners are safe. All this stuff, And we're like, okay, something's got to be causing this.
Sure.
And why not just start chipping away at it? What are the things? Maybe it's just a compiling of all these things that's making us unhealthy. But why not start chipping away at it?
Sure.
Hey, let's take this away. There's an alternative that we know is safe. Beet juice, turmeric, whatever, natural dyes. It's not as bright. Who cares? You know what?
See, I think that's the issue though. I don't think it's necessarily okay. If you can say this petroleum-based red dye, is not unhealthy, meaning it doesn't cause cancer, right?
Right.
Or that's how they're defining it, right?
Or autism, or anything,
or whatever.
or other.
So then I would push back and say, well, I think it exists in most of our foods for psychological and behavioral modification reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's there to prompt you to eat that food.
Yeah.
Right.
Which the food it's in is not good for you in and of itself.
Right. So we might be experiencing an increase in diabetes because maybe we're being psychologically manipulated to eat things that become addictive to us, even though the element itself is not.
That's proven. That is
right?
but that has been proven.
So my feeling is just because we can doesn't mean we should, right? So if red dye 40 or yellow dye whatever is, it's not causing us physical harm directly, it doesn't mean we should do it.
Right.
Remove all that crap from the food.
I eat Magic Spoon Fruit Loops, and they are plenty bright.
My bigger question is, I think this is great, and I know that they're going to go out there and claim this to be a win.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think that collectively what we're saying here, and if you're listening and viewing, please weigh in, because what we eat and what we put in our bodies and how you see yourself as being healthy in our society, it should matter to everybody.
Right.
I mean, this should not be a partisan conversation. We should all, doesn't matter what your belief is, we should all want the things that we consume and put in our bodies to be of a healthy nature.
Right. Like this bourbon.
Yeah. Well, but it is though. This is right. It lowers my blood pressure.
It's corn.
What's interesting is we have hundreds of
wheat.
There's no high fructose corn syrup in it.
There's grains in it.
We have hundreds of ingredients, probably more than that are banned in other countries that we're allowed to use, and we just don't know.
Right.
We don't know, so it passes based on we don't know whether.
Yeah, we don't know what to test for. Maybe.
And it kind of comes back to also is it's convenient that we don't know. Just like all the supplements, it's like any supplement that could be good for you is always you look it up and it's more research needs to be done to know if it's helpful or not.
Right.
Well, it's always going to be more research needs to be done because nobody's doing the research because it's not monetarily, it's not profitable.
Right.
So all these things, turmeric, it's one of the, you look it up and it's supposed to be one of the most natural anti-inflammatories for your body, but you look it up and it's FDA is we don't know, not enough research. Well, you're never going to do the research because you can't make a medication out of it.
Right.
So,
that's
so it's
point.
Also convenient to the other way. We're just not going to do the research because it is financially beneficial to be able to use all these things and pass them through in our ingredients. because it's profitable. It's cheap.
Yeah.
They're cheap ingredients, but they're not going to research them because
What
So
I
you're
what I
saying-
drive. Go ahead, Aaron.
Cereal companies care more about the bottom line than they do about your health.
yeah, it's
What?
weird. It's weird.
No way.
I don't know. More research is required to determine whether or not that's true.
Collectively, this in this studio, we sit here as the representation of a big bowl of cereal with Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah, totally.
So we're already
Look,
screwed.
don't get me wrong. I've had my fair share of Cocoa Puffs. Okay?
Yeah, of course. Sugar Snaps.
Sugar Snaps. Oh.
Cookie
Sugar Snaps was the name of the cereal. It's right there.
Oh, how about Cookie Crunch?
Cookie Crunch.
There were commercials back in the 80s how sugar was great, like a nutritional thing.
Yeah.
Like gives you energy, powers your day. It's like
Okay, let's go around the room real quick, and then we'll get back to our conversation here. Favorite cereal as a child?
Cocoa Puffs.
Cocoa Puffs,
Fruity Pebbles.
Fruity Pebbles. Okay.
Lots of artificial dye in those.
Yeah, mine
had to
was
You had to
Sugar
eat them
Snaps.
in 30 seconds or else they became mush.
Yeah, right. Which kind of was genius.
I mean, the Cocoa Puffs, though, you got the chocolate milk when you were done eating the
You
cereal.
did?
That was
You
good.
did?
That was the win.
That was
yeah.
good.
Sugar Snaps was good too as the milk.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Mine was whatever
The finished product.
whatever UPC codes you could collect to turn in for a transformer.
Nice.
That's right.
Back in the day, it was like I got to eat 20 boxes next week of this cereal so I can get the GI Joe guy.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to putting toys in the bottom of cereal boxes?
And yeah, everyone was choking on them. They were
Always
stupid.
like tattoos though, or something like.
Yeah. Every
So-
now and then you get something cool.
So here's what I want to drive at. What I was starting to say is that clearly, Health and Human Services, they're going to claim this to be a win, and sure, that's fine.
I'd agree with that.
I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
You know, first of all, if it's artificial and synthetic, maybe let's not have it in our food. But it does keep it. To me, it keeps coming back to. We promote this as being the win because we were able to look at 8 particular things, point our finger at it and go, okay, see, if you just remove that, then that's gonna make it better. Okay, not saying that that's not. Go ahead and do that. But we still continue to look the other way on overprocessed foods, on sugary substances and artificial sugary substances, portion sizes.
Excess. Yeah. Portion sizes are a big one.
We continuously overlook the things that are actually giving us the greatest amount of problem, which is cardiovascular heart disease.
Yeah.
Not enough
Stroke.
sleep is one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Right.
People don't sleep enough or well enough.
Yeah. So so what I'm driving at is that, again, this to me, this should not be a partisan conversation. This should be a bipartisan conversation, which is you can claim it for whatever you like. You know, if you can get these things out of our food, I'll give you a checkbox in the win category.
Yeah.
Great.
It's another step in the right direction.
But we still end up failing over and over, generation by generation. We still fail at calling out that why are there things on menus at the Cheese Factory that have 2,600 calories?
I know Cheesecake Factory. That was the one that came to my mind too.
Yeah, you know,
We got a whole restaurant chain
or if I
named
go-
after cheesecake.
you know, and I think that
And their
goes
portions
back to,
are like
well, right.
ridiculous.
And we claim that as being in America, you know, we kind of claim that to be like a thing, you know, like it's bigger and better in America. But it
So are all the
kills
people.
us too, though. The people are big. The firefighters are too big. I mean, I'm saying that. I'm sorry, but when I see people that are on the front line and they're not taking care of themselves,
I mean,
for
it's
whatever
got to
the
be
re-
one of the main contributors
Yeah.
to the number of med calls that the fire service is going on, right? It's
Sure.
just obesity, poor eating.
like stuffing, you know, getting
Yeah.
something in your belly, getting out there, and we do it. And then this again, I'm not coming down on I'm not trying to make this thing about like it's about the firefighters and
Right.
that they're failing at their dietary, you know, choices.
No.
I'm saying that
It's a bigger
it's
problem.
collectively it's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And I'm just seeing it from that one little, sliver of society where it is. I do think that it's sad to see any first responders that are out of shape, overweight. You can't tell me that you're doing all that you can if you're that overweight and you're that out of shape. It comes back to diet. It comes back to habits, and things of that nature. I mean, quite frankly, I worry for these things to be taken out of because firefighters love Twinkies and and ice cream, and all of these things are in those things. But no, that's a little bit of joking. So what I'm driving at is that overall, the bigger conversation is we'll get really passionate about these things, whether you're for it or against it. It's like, okay, so we can take the element out of something and make it better. But what we're not doing is we're not changing the mentality of the society as a whole.
Right. But I do think
that's a tough one because it's so ingrained. Well, number one, we're a society on the go.
Yeah.
And so,
well, and that's
this morning, I mean, I'm driving and I'm like, I gotta just pick up something to eat, real quick. And it's like, I'm going to try to order the healthiest thing on the McDonald's menu. And it's just,
which is
what are apparently an Egg McMuffin.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Lowest calorie.
So
not what I would have guessed.
You're driving around, and again, we're on the go all the time. We're moving. We're doing what's convenient because we're just we're in the car all day long. We're driving around, taking our kids places, and the option. What are fast food options that are healthy, like truly healthy? Steak and Shake has all of a sudden become the health food place because they're frying their fries in beef tallow. So that's where I'm going for health food.
Yeah, until tallow is found to be bad for you.
Yeah, it's still French fries.
I'm just saying that's what we're looking at, and what are the health? You're like, okay, Taco Bell, I can get a burrito with beans, but it'd be ideal, and it's probably those fast food places probably wouldn't make it because of what they would have to charge for healthy food that's unprocessed, fresh, organic meat, whatever, grass-fed beef, the stuff that really is healthy for you. Too expensive, maybe not, people aren't conditioned to eat it. It doesn't look as appetizing. You get on a McDonald's kick, all you want to eat is McDonald's.
Yeah.
So there's when you start eating healthy, McDonald's doesn't seem appetizing. It seems gross. But most people are conditioned, to their taste buds. I look at grocery carts in the store and I'm like, how are you alive?
Oh yeah.
Everything.
I was shopping. I was shopping
and frozen pizzas, and I'm like, I don't know how you're living.
Right.
And when you look at them, you don't know how they're living.
Right.
I was shopping an afternoon at Woodman's, and particularly I shop a certain way. I stick to that outer lanes, if you will. And I was, I don't know, we'll say halfway through my grocery trip, and I had a woman that she looked over at my cart, and she's like, "Ew,
Right.
that looks ugly." Like she looked at my grocery, and all I had was I had vegetables and greens, and I had
lettuce.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
Her comment was, "Ugh, that looks ugly," and she did it funny and jokey and that kind of thing. But as soon as you brought that up, I'm like, oh, it made me think about this interaction that I had this one time, and it is a mentality that to look beyond. We know that these are things that are not healthy for us.
Right.
And I'm not saying, go have your cheeseburger. Do it. I love cheeseburgers. But at the consistent rate that we consume it, and that why isn't our Health and Human Service Secretary of any administration, why is it that they're not driving home the bigger campaign, not just to us, but to the manufacturers of food, and say, you have got to stop this.
Right.
Follow the money. Might as well just say that and get that out. Follow the money. That's probably why, because there's too much money to be made in the shit.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at our government for the answers, for the better direction of our lives, and you should be in control of that. You as an individual should take control of your own life and the best outcomes that you can create from that. But we do look to our governments for the guidance. We do. We have too many other things going on in our daily lives. That's why you elect officials. So that they can go to Washington or go to your state capital or do whatever they do at your local level to hopefully promote you having a better life. But we have got literally decades of information and a better understanding, as you said earlier. Everything is on the rise. Every cancer is on the rise. Colon cancer, which was once thought to be one of the most treatable things, they're now, they've bumped up colon screening at 45 years old, and they may have to go even earlier than that these days. They have 150,000 new cases of colon cancer already this year.
30% of kids are pre-diabetic.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm driving at is that this is great, and it's making a lot of headlines to remove these 8 artificial dyes from our food. And everyone's running around doing a victory lap. And some people are calling out and saying bullshit. Like I mentioned the woman that, she's a doctor, and she's like, actually, this is not that big of a deal. And she might be right.
It's something, though.
But it's a step.
And that's something. Okay. And that's okay. That's okay. Let it be something and let it be that.
You should be looking at everything.
Sure.
I mean, ideally that we're hitting everything, and we get the ball rolling and start looking at how much sugar is added to everything. One of the most profitable companies, biggest companies I've ever done work for, did flavor science. So you'd go in there and they had flavor scientists and people that would essentially figure out how to create new flavors for your Oreos and new flavors for your Doritos and new flavors for all of the things that you shouldn't be eating to make them even more appealing and more addictive. And they were banking. They were like a $12 billion company at that time. They're probably double that now.
And it's just a chem lab.
Yeah.
It's crazy. My neighbor did that for a living. I wouldn't want to eat any of that stuff.
Yeah. And it's not like they're going, let's figure out how to make healthy food taste better. Everything on the walls.
No, it's how do we make this more attractive, more addictive to increase our profit?
And it was only, it's only processed foods that they're making tastier.
What's so interesting is throughout life, I've struggled with weight and like discipline and all those things. And I started working with a health coach, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago.
Did he tell you to put the fork down?
She.
Did she tell you to put the fork down?
No, it wasn't like that. Actually, what it was, there was a lot of time that was spent in the beginning working on just mindset. Like, what are your goals in life? Why do you want to lose weight or be a certain weight? Like, what's the motivation? What's the driver? And all of these things are like retraining your brain to understand that food is fuel.
Yes.
Food is not a reward, right? Food is not the way that we celebrate
unless you run a marathon.
Or the way that even then it's fuel, right?
I'm saying completed.
Sure. Okay. Your victory beer or whatever you're going to have.
You deserved a hot fudge sundae after a 26.2 run. I've done it a couple times.
Yeah. So. Good for you. That's great. That's fine.
Go ahead.
But there's this tension that exists. And for me, it was unlocking the brain power that really drove decision making, and like peeling away these ideas that we have about when it's a birthday, I should get that special treat, or that when you take your kid to a restaurant for their birthday, the staff's bringing out an ice cream sundae. It's like, why are we celebrating everything with food? Like, why are we commiserating over food? Why are we like, when we travel, one of the things we're most excited about is trying new foods. Like, we're so geared towards consumption as a culture that we've like equated consumption. I mean, we've got Food Network. There's all these things that are
right.
Anyway, so we've really been trained as a society to overconsume, and we've been overexposed to false flavors, exaggerated flavors, over sugared things, over salted things. One of the first things that we did in this process was like eliminate all of the addictive things, sugars, caffeine, like anything that your body would become addicted to, just eliminating that stuff for a few weeks and letting your body purge itself of those things. And then we went into controlling consumption and just paying attention to things, increasing water intake, increasing movement, building these habits and disciplines over time. And it got to the point where my wife and I went out to celebrate an anniversary or something, and we went to a restaurant and we pre-figured out what we were going to order when we got there. So we were, not making an impulse decision on the spot and choosing the wrong thing. But even choosing something healthy in this kind of commercial restaurant environment, we left and we were just like miserable. We felt like crap because our body had been purged of all of that crap and resensitized to all of it, that when we left, just like the extra amount of salt and things that they put in food just to make it like appetizing to the general public was so overdone. We felt awful. Like even into the next morning, it was almost like having a hangover from the salt that was on my steak or whatever it was. So anyway, I think that as a society, we've just been so desensitized to the amount of crap that we consume, the portions, the unnecessary amount of portions that we're putting into ourselves to adequately fuel our bodies for what most of us translates to like sitting for 12 hours a day or whatever. Like we're not moving the way that we should be. So removing dyes from foods, I think it is a win. It's a small win, but it's a step in the right direction. And it was an easy thing, I think, that everybody could rally around. There's not really a partisan bent towards whether or not we should have dye in our food. And I do think, Trump is all about the economy. He's all about making America great again. And in one sense, like one slice of the pie for him on that is making America wealthy again, right? Sure. Generating our own wealth, making ourselves financially secure again, financially stable. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling that he had to stay kind of in a lane that wasn't going to have such a drastic monetary impact on companies that are producing this food. So like removing dyes, those things are already removed in most countries around the world. Well, they already know how to deal with this change. They just have to make the change. The
wealth has a big impact on it too, because we eat pretty healthy in our house, but our grocery bill is insane.
Yeah.
It is absolute. We're feeding a family of 5. We try to feed our kids as healthy as we can. And it's not, it's much cheaper to buy the ramen noodles and Doritos and
for sure.
And raviolis in the can and
Chef Boyardee.
Yeah, that's cheap. Swiss cake rolls, all that stuff. You can get by with half the grocery budget.
Right.
That it is hard to check out in a grocery store. Sometimes twice a week. You get home and you got growing kids, and it's like you get home and it's like 2 days later everything's gone. You're like, what happened?
I just dropped hundreds of dollars on a grocery bill.
A party?
Nothing left.
Did you have people over? Who ate all this stuff?
Did Mickey Rooney show up?
I know, and it's like so it's expensive to eat healthy. Ideally, we'd get to a spot. Hopefully, we're at a impasse here between people losing their jobs over AI and then spending more money on groceries. So how do you resolve that? If everybody ate healthy, they could produce that in mass.
Time to start homesteading.
And then those things would be cheaper. But at the same time, I think you got to value it over like, hey, we subscribe to every streaming platform.
Right. Totally.
So
where did all my money go?
We got to cut the budget on groceries.
We love watching food be prepared.
We do.
I mean, that stuff gets expensive. So you got to like, what do you value and prioritize the most? And, you got to bite the bullet and prioritize buying healthy food. It's more expensive.
Yeah.
But it's in the long run, it is we don't think long term, we think short term.
Mm-hmm.
In the long run, hopefully you're not buying medications, spending money on surgeries, and obesity is expensive too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that, as we kind of bring this all together, where we've talked about space, and we've talked about some current events, and we've talked about health and nutrition and what is the trajectory. Actually, I would ask this, and this is more of like a rhetorical, which is, where do we go from here after all of these suggestions that whether these ingredients, are they tied to certain diseases? Are they contributing to underlying causes that we see throughout our society that is, really affecting us in a genetic way? What about the takedown of our society from the consumption point of view? Not just these ingredients, but just the overall consumption. How much we just digest and put into our bodies and keep doing it consistently, and making ourselves unhealthy and making other corporations very wealthy.
Yeah.
And so all of these things, I think hopefully there's cause and reason for everyone to take a thought about this, pause. We're not experts. We put a lot of this stuff out there as if it would be, debated over the firehouse kitchen table.
Yeah,
and,
right.
You say the things and we don't want to take anyone down a road where we suggest that what you think is wrong and what we think is right, but we're also a part of the society of itself. Like I exist here in this country, and I exist in the idea that I want our country to be adventurous. Mm-hmm. I want them to go to space and figure out all the way, not just halfway. I want us to be proud about where we're from. I want us to fight terrorism. Mm-hmm. I want us to fight the bad guys and the people that want to hurt us. I want us to be healthy.
Yeah.
It's all of these things together. Here's something I would wrap up with, kind of bring it to the end of this conversation. We're going to stay with this for a few minutes, which is, we went to FDIC, and we collectively, I would think we would say, because I don't speak for you two, I had a great time.
Yeah.
And I had a great time with you guys, you two. I'm so happy that you guys are my partners.
Yeah, it was a blast, man.
And not to mention that, but to go further than that, which is, then we also met so many great people.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I picked up on was, no matter who we spoke to, I won't say 100%, but almost most people that we talked to would have some kind of a conversation or a slant towards mental health and wellness.
Yeah. That came up a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
And what we do on the show, on our podcast, is we do talk a lot about that. Mm-hmm. But we also go, at least we make the attempt to go to certain places where we want to expose, whether it's positive or negative, what is making us happier, what's making us sadder, what is making us healthier, what is not making us healthier. Mm-hmm. We haven't covered it all. We've got more episodes to release, and we got more coming. That's a little teaser there. But the bigger picture that I see is that there's a lot of people out there that are trying to do really good things, just like we're trying to do here. And I think that's what FDIC gave me a boost of confidence, which was, we're in this to make our life better, maybe make your life better if you're listening or viewing, but also to stimulate conversation. You know, it's better for you to dive into the facts, you know, be very factual, be scientific, if you will. Not all of us have that amount of time to be able to do that. So picking a thing that you're passionate about, and that's what came through with FDIC, was that we met so many people who were passionate about the thing that they were really wanting to deliver to the people.
Yeah, I think there was, and we talked with a lot of people who I would say amongst the fire service, there are those that, yes, there are those that lead in their capacity on the job, but there are those that are leading the fire service as a whole, not just pointing out issues that exist, but actually trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we met with the guys that started the Texas Firefighter Home.
Yeah.
Right. That was really cool to hear about them just looking out for other firefighters, trying to take care of guys that are coming in for cancer treatment, and just trying to help their fellow firefighters. Right.
Right.
And not going, oh, this problem is bigger than me, but saying like, what can I do to help? And this is what I can do today. And then, okay, the need is bigger than what I can do. So let's get some more people involved and let's do this. And then now they're growing it. Now, like, but we do see like, actually we need to get to here, and they're pushing to get to there. And we had, a conversation with Roth ID Tag. Again, just another example of somebody going, okay, tragedy has created an obvious need, right?
Yep.
And we see, and we can do something about this. And so we're going to create a product that can help the most vulnerable of us, our children, infants in child seats who cannot help themselves and now are maybe without a parent to take care of them. We can create a product and get it into the hands of the public and educate the fire service on how to actually leverage this information to help these children and help the families that are going through these tragedies. And we talked with, people that are taking maybe retired firefighters who are struggling with PTSD and taking them on excursions to work through those issues. And I just saw, as we had conversation after conversation, there's a lot in the fire service. Men and women are working really hard, and there are also needs that exist. And a lot of people are vocalizing these needs. We're seeing a lot of it in the comments on our episodes and on our shorts. And we like to hear about that because those are things that we can talk about and hopefully surface. But there is also this whole other tier of people in the fire service that know about that issue and are doing something about it. And those were the conversations to me that I was like, this is great. I want to partner with these people. I want to help them, by elevating the organizations that they've established to help deal with these issues, right, by bringing the issues to the surface and hopefully see something done about it, not just talk about it.
Well, so you brought up Roth ID Tag, and we collectively, I remember talking about it, at the end of the first night, and we had said that the product that they created out of tragedy was pretty impressive.
Right. Yeah.
And the misfortune of, some of the family members that had to deal with what they went through. Mm-hmm. But then they figured out a way to make a really bad situation a little bit better. And they came up with this, this Roth ID Tag, which is silver metallic. I'm assuming that I haven't pulled it apart, but it has an adhesive that it connects. Right. It'll go onto a child's seat. And then here's what I thought was awesome when I was speaking with Lauren, the founder of Roth ID Tag. And when she said that the information that you fill out on the child, mm-hmm, it's on the inside of the tag, and then this tag is, affixed to the car seat, but that it can be pulled off of the car seat and then become a bracelet that you put onto the kid.
Yes. Yep.
So that you now have an identifiable way to track that child.
Right.
For the duration that you have to,
without having to write it down on scene, without having to remove the car seat.
That's what I was like, okay, now you had me already at the point where you stuck it to the seat. Mm-hmm. And then when you could take it off and it became a bracelet to the child, I was like, okay, and then you went to the next step.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think that they came up with a really great product born out of a very, very sad situation.
Yep.
So, and you brought up, Texas Firefighter House and our home and all the other things too. And we're going to be coming out with some other information, as we go along throughout the rest of this year.
Team 6. We
Sad
talked to
Team
those
6.
guys. Yeah.
We had just such great experiences, and we just loved, and not just people that were promoting products, but then we brought on just firefighters from different places.
Yeah.
And I thought it was cool. We had the guy from London, Canada,
Yep.
and Detroit,
Right.
city of Detroit,
Yeah.
not a suburb, but
Right.
Detroit firefighter.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I spent a lot of time as a child in Detroit, and I saw it when it was pretty seedy and not great. I went to a lot of Detroit Tiger games at the Big White Elephant, their old white, big, huge stadium, and which is gone. And now they've, everything has really kind of come down to downtown Detroit. And I think, they're experienced a little bit of a renaissance. I think things are getting better in Detroit, and that came through having that conversation with that firefighter. The guys from Kodiak Island Bureau,
Yeah. Alaska. Yeah.
The guys from Kodiak Island, those two, I don't know, they stuck with me.
Yeah.
The life that they're living out there. So like that would be going back full circle. We started out having the space conversation,
Right.
That to me would be like Mars. Being out there on Kodiak.
Completely different environment, territory. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then just real quick here, I want to give a shout out to, we had an author, we had a fire captain. He's from Jupiter, Florida. And, his name is, Jared Vermeulen, and he authored the book, The Modern Fire Officer. The Modern Fire Officer. I've got it right here. I read this week. It was a very good read. It was easy to digest. It was easy to relate to, especially from me coming up through promotional processes, especially going from firefighter to lieutenant. I just had conversations with him the other day and said, hey, I really did enjoy this book. And not to mention the fact that I think that this book would be a good reference material for promotional testing from, say, firefighter to lieutenant, maybe lieutenant to captain, but I just think that this is a very good, steadfast guide to successful officership. And so I really do want to endorse this book. This is a very, very well-written book. I had a good conversation with him. He said he wrote this basically during COVID.
Right.
And I thought that was, hey, it's good use of time.
Yeah.
He had said that he went through 4 or 5 different rewrites, and when he thought that he had a finished product, he showed it to his wife, and he showed it to his crew, and they all give a thumbs up.
Which you would think would be like, oh, you did it during COVID during your downtime, but he's a firefighter.
No,
Right.
right.
There's no downtime.
So there's no downtime.
So no, yeah, he had to keep going and do the work and be the officer that he is, and he came across in a very great way in our conversation. Very solid, individual. So just a shout out to Jared Vermeulen, and it's a good book, The Modern Fire Officer. So give it a read. Anyways, we look forward to being back there at FDIC next year, 2026. And we do thank everybody that came to our booth.
Yeah.
So
We're going to bump our sticker game next year.
oh yeah,
For sure.
we're coming with more
Man,
stickers.
those things were moving.
We're going to be like
Gave out a
Stickers.
record number of stickers. How many did we give away? Like
We went through almost 1,000 in the first day.
oh yeah,
that we were down there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody loves the stickers.
Way to go, FDIC. You guys
Yeah.
turned out great.
So there will be more stickers to come, and we appreciate that you listen and view us. Remember that we're on all of our platforms, wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. That helps us out very much. Hit that button, subscribe, and as always, be safe out there. Take care.